Thank you for tuning into this video on how to use OFAC's Sanctions List Search tool. This video will also cover how to assess potential matches to OFAC sanctions. First, let's understand what OFAC sanctions lists are and how you might be using them. OFAC maintains several publicly available lists of sanctioned individuals and entities, and even some identified blocked property like aircraft and vessels. The most well-known list is OFAC's Specially Designated Nationals and Blocked Persons List, which we often shorten to the SDN list. The SDN list includes over 10,000 names of entities, individuals, aircraft, and maritime vessels, all of which are subject to OFAC blocking sanctions. You will often hear people refer to persons on the SDN list as blocked persons or SDNs. When OFAC adds someone to the SDN list, U.S. persons are generally prohibited from dealing with them. And importantly, that person's property and interest in property in the United States or in the possession or control of a U.S. person is blocked, which essentially means it must be frozen in a specific manner as described in our regulations. OFAC also maintains several other sanctions lists, which you may hear us collectively refer to as non-SDN lists. When someone is listed solely on one of OFAC's non-SDN lists, the required action for U.S. persons dealing with those listed persons may vary, but generally does not require blocking property. We'll talk about how you can figure out what action you might need to take in a little bit. Now, our most basic requirement is that U.S. persons and persons using the U.S. financial system comply with OFAC sanctions. As such, screening activity and parties involved in any kind of transaction against OFAC's lists, which are available to the public on our website in different file formats, can be a great starting point. Many of you may already be engaged in screening activity against our sanctions list through your organization's own screening system or, through some third-party software. This is rather common because the OFAC screening tool available on our website was originally designed for small to medium businesses, and it doesn't allow for bulk searches. Regardless of whatever tool you're using, what do you do when you think you might have a match to someone on an OFAC sanctions list? How can you determine if it's a real match or a false positive? Your organization might have their own internal policies or procedures, but we also have our famed frequently asked question number 5, and that provides some guidance on how to assess a potential match. Let's start with the sanctions list search tool, how it works, and what information is available. OFAC Sanctions List Search Tool is a free web-based screening tool intended for use by individual users. It will help you identify potential matches to the entities, individuals, aircraft, and vessels that make up our SDN or non-SDN lists. Once you conduct a search, you will see all of the publicly available identifying information on that person. So before you start using our search tool, you should probably know where to find it. To access our search tool online, you can go to OFAC's homepage, ofac.treasury.gov, and click the link that says Search Lists. Or you can go directly to sanctionssearch.ofac.treasury.gov. You should now be looking at OFAC Sanctions List Search Tool. We typically recommend starting with the name field first and leaving the other fields blank. Adding criteria to the other fields can potentially limit results because certain listings may not include details for every field. But before we start using this, let's go over what these fields actually mean. The type field will allow you to narrow your search to entities, individuals, or even aircraft and vessels. To keep your initial search broad, we suggest leaving the type as all. The name field is where you will type the name of the person or entity you are searching. You can use the ID number and digital currency addresses field to search for national identification numbers, passport numbers, business taxpayer numbers, SWIFT bank codes, virtual currency wallet addresses, and other identifiers. For the widest possible search, let's leave this field blank for now. The program field will let you search for persons who are sanctioned pursuant to specific OFAC sanctions programs. But again, for the broadest possible search, let's leave this set to search all programs. The address, city, state, and country fields will let you narrow your search by addresses and countries associated with a person. Be careful when dealing with a listing where only the address field matches your search terms because people move, and many companies share addresses when they're located in the same office building. For now, we'll leave this blank. The list field will let you narrow your search to either our SDN list or non-SDN list, but again, let's leave this set to all. Finally, we have the minimum name score slider. This number right here indicates how close a match may be between the name entered and resulting matches on one of OFAC's sanctions lists. In other words, this score determines how fuzzy the search logic will be when a search is run. So when set to 100, the search tool will only return results that are an exact match to the information filled out in the name field, and not account for things like misspellings or abbreviations. So for our example, let's search for Joaquin Guzman, the sanctioned former drug lord, and let's click search. As you can see here, our search has not returned any results. This is because the minimum name score is set to 100. But if we slide the bar and lower the minimum name score down to, say, 80, the search tool will return near matches to account for possible mistakes or variations. And now you can see that we get a lot more results. It's important to note that there's no official recommended minimum name score. However, below 80 or so, you will start seeing more unrelated matches. Now, as you can see, once we reduce the minimum name score, we can see I misspelled the name of Joaquin Guzman, also known as El Chapo. If this is the potential match that I'm looking for, I can click the blue hyperlinked name to open up the listing. Now we are looking at all of the publicly available details for this blocked person that can be found on OFAC's SDN list. You can tell he is an SDN and not a non-SDN because it says SDN here in the upper right. This listing also has all of the additional public information associated with this blocked person, including where he was born, his date of birth, and his known aliases. As of the recording of this video, El Chapo's residency is a US federal prison. But if there was another address that we have identified as being associated with this person, we would have that listed here as well. Now, I also want to note that if you're looking at the results of your organization's internal screening tool or some third-party screening tool, you may have information in your result that isn't found in the OFAC listing. Remember, your screening tool is likely screening against much more than just OFAC sanctions. There's also information that's in our sanctions list that might not be incorporated into our sanctions list search tool. If you're using a third-party screening tool, it may already include some of OFAC's more advanced list information. Ultimately, we recommend you use all of the information you have available to make a risk-based screening decision. In this case, Joaquin Guzman is designated pursuant to our foreign narcotics kingpin sanctions regulations. So if we open up a new tab, we can navigate to ofac.treasury.gov, and at the top, we will click Sanctions Programs. We can then click Complete List of Sanctions Programs and Country Information. Clicking this will take you to our Sanctions Program page, where you can dive deeper into each one of our programs. So, once you've confirmed the party you're searching for is a potential match to someone on an OFAC sanctions list, you should review the complete sanctions list entry to see what caused the alert. So what part of the listing matched your search terms? For now, let's focus on potential name matches. Once you've confirmed a potential name match to someone on one of OFAC's sanctions lists, you should compare the complete sanctions list entry with the information you have on the party you searched. If you don't have any additional information on the party you searched, you might request it from the party directly, or the party's financial institution, such as their bank if you're processing a transaction on their behalf. In our example, let's pretend we are processing a transaction for a Joaquin Guzman, but our customer Joaquin was born in 1990 and is an American citizen. In that case, it's probably not a true match to the infamous drug lord born in 1954. Once you assess that, you would likely be okay to proceed with your activity or process that transaction. Quick caveat here, please note that this guidance only applies to OFAC regulations. There may be other regulations from your state or federal regulators that may prohibit your proposed transaction. Once you've asked for more information from the customer, and if you've done all your research and reviewed all of the information, if after that you're still not sure whether you found a potential match to a sanctioned person, you can contact the OFAC Compliance Hotline for additional assistance. Our contact information is available on our webpage. Our OFAC Hotline staff will help guide you through the information you have on your customer and the information available on our sanctions list so that you can make a risk-based decision about whether to proceed with the activity. On the other hand, if you believe you have found a true match, you can visit OFAC's FAQ topic page on blocking and rejecting transactions. Finally, please be aware that not all sanctioned individuals and entities appear on OFAC's sanctions list. Please review additional guidance on OFAC's website for information on OFAC's 50% rule, jurisdiction-based sanctions, and other helpful topics. Thank you for tuning in, and be sure to review the other material we have on our website, including answers to our most frequently asked questions.